Race number 11 of the second round robin stage of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. Dean Barker's SoftBank Team Japan against Nathan Outridge's Artemis Racing. A narrow win for the Swedes when they met on the opening day here, Ken.
Here comes the dance. You can see the start line way up high up there, and they're going to come together and do a little jostling around and again try to either sneak for that hook or, in the case of Artemis right now, possibly gapping off. But still 40 seconds to go before the start. Plenty of time to get a little action in.
Let's come up here, let's come up now. Big gust, big gust.
Fighting for that left-hand end of the starting line, or the bottom end of the starting line right there. Still a little early, and giving the opportunity for Artemis to possibly get an overlap and get a little hook here. Dean Barker's got himself in a tough spot.
Well, that's terrific work from Nathan Outridge. He's driving the Japanese away from the start line and now maneuvering himself back into position for the start line. He is almost ground the Japanese to a halt, and now the pace is being picked up here by the Swedes. 26, 27, 28 knots over the start line, and the Swedes off to a flyer.
I think this is also the curse of the commentator. We talked in the pre-show about how Dean Barker has been dominating in his starting technique and getting to that mark number 1 first, and here he got smoked for a second start in a row.
Nothing lasts forever. Dean Barker will know that better than anybody, but the pace of both of these boats is astonishing as they round mark 1 and head downwind around the 40 knot mark. And the Japanese very much still in touch. Outgunned in the pre-start, but hanging in. And if you can somehow minimize the damage to those early advantages, Ken, then you can start to apply the heat quite quickly on this downwind section.
Fast mode is fine. To the mark. Go weak. Okay, my clutch.
Both teams sitting on 3 points going into this race, but it doesn't really matter. It's an interesting format. The winner of the Challenger Series, which I believe is now officially Emirates Team New Zealand, gets to choose who they want to race against. So it's not just 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3. I believe I read correctly that they get to choose. So talk about a little bit of suspense. It's kind of traditional in the match racing circuit that the number 1 seed gets to choose who they want to race against, and a lot of time it isn't the number 4 seed. They'll look at the weather forecast, they'll look at who they think is good in what condition, and pick and choose who they believe would be the most favorable competitor against themselves.
Well, it's going to provide a wonderful talking point over the next couple of days, isn't it?
There we go, right hand mark.
The choices made.
Another big talking point is Oracle Team New Zealand. That's the race tomorrow for April. Whoever wins that race tomorrow gets a point going into the America's Cup. Now that is if Emirates Team New Zealand makes the America's Cup. But
round the second gate, and Nathan Outridge's Sweden leading the way, hitting the speeds that they found early on in the race yet again. Japan in hot pursuit. Delicate business, I would imagine, Ken, with the choices over who to choose, because if the weather forecast is remotely off kilter, you are opening yourself up to all kinds of trouble, I would have thought.
Absolutely, and this race course is actually interesting. It's pretty, as Adam said before, very one-sided. A lot of starboard tack in this race course. That's why you saw Dean Barker actually tack before he got to the boundary. See, coming downwind here, the two boats had long port tacks coming all the way downwind, and going back upwind, they're going to have long starboard tacks all the way across. So the breeze has definitely gone right on this race course, which you would imagine favors the guy ahead a little bit. The more one-sided a racetrack is, the more you can kind of corral your competitor. But at this stage, Dean Barker's going pretty quick right now, so no lead is ever safe out here, as we've seen.
30 seconds till we can, that tack won't cost. Copy. Minutes to boundary in there. Keep it quick, Dino. Copy. Keep it quick. Any bias on the gate? Any bias on the gate, Pano? 23 minutes left, copy.
Chris Draper asking, is there any bias on the gate? They have that gate into their computer system. They can tell you which one is closer. It sounded like 3 meters to the left-hand gate. So that's how well the measurements work. They can figure out 3 meters closer left-hand gate. It's a boat race here right now.
Very little to choose between these two on the third leg of 7. Both teams have been up on the foils for the entirety of the race so far. And just a distance of around 80 meters or so. I guess a different sort of dynamic to the races now that we know the French are out, Kenny. I mean, these two will mind clearly about winning and losing because that's in a competitor's DNA, but effectively they might they feel a bit more free to try a few things out and test out the systems a little more than they might ordinarily?
Potentially. Potentially, yes. But I think you nailed it up front. Their DNA doesn't allow for anything other than throttle down. I gotta go somehow destroy the other guy. Your objective out there isn't to just win. It's to win convincingly, and that was kind of a conventional match racing tactic by the Swedes there to attack virtually in unison with SoftBank, and you're going to see this happen again. They're going to attack virtually in unison again here. Artemis has gone a little higher and a little slower in order to be able to attack directly on top of SoftBank Team Japan here when they attack. And there we go.
And the benefit of that from the Swedish perspective, they can keep the Japanese where they want them,
yes,
and they can disturb their air.
And correct, and the mark is over here someplace, and those guys want to just keep themselves between the man and the hoop. They could bear off in front. They could actually slide in front of them here a little bit and use some wing wash, which they're doing. You see them tuck right down. There's wash coming off the back of their wing right there in order to affect Dean Barker, possibly pop him off of his foils. This is a very solid match racing move. There's the wing wash, and
so much better than your pen.
Oh, come on, really? But you can see the gap very clearly opening up. Artemis did a very nice job setting up. There's really nothing Japan could do in this situation. Artemis did a very nice job of setting up and controlling the race course and doubling his lead just in this last little section. I wouldn't call it a big lead, though.
Well, we're back to that hand-to-hand combat thing, aren't we? We are involved in a proper scrap between two boats whose only mission is to mess up the others.
Adam, it kind of almost looks like a match race out there, doesn't it?
No, it's very close racing for sure, and I think nice work by Japan and that beat to close it right down. But just unfortunately, Artemis did nice work to open it up with a bit of bad air. But I think the race is definitely not over here. One mistake and Japan will be right in there.
Fast built. Much better shot. BMG with this thing, straight down at it.
We saw on the last run, Ali, that Japan took a lower route, a lower course all the way down. Look at this, both boats at 100%. You think these teams are getting any good at this? I mean, a really close race, both at 100%. But Japan was able to take a little deeper course to the mark. They're going to have to do the same thing again. If Artemis is on what's called the ley line, the proper ley line into the gate, SoftBank might lose a little bit of distance going a little slower and lower to also make through the gate without having to do attack or jibe. Got to imagine, though, that Barker's thinking, and He's thinking maybe we have to force a split. The foil situation, again, all boats are on their short foils today. They're high, what they call their high-speed foils. They've been out of the water 100% of the time, so obviously stability is not an issue with these two teams. Very similar in shape and size.
Both these two teams seemingly riding quite high up in the water, Ken. The other team's not necessarily adopting that approach all the time.
Yeah, copy.
Getting high out of the water, it's a toss-up between the amount of drag you eliminate by getting that foil up in the air, both the rudders and the dagger boards, versus slipping sideways. We call it leeway. You go too high, you actually start going sideways quite rapidly. Here we come into this bottom gate.
Swedes leading the way. Couple of extra knots of speed for Nathan Outridge's men as they round the gates and head upwind for the final time in the race. Look how high they are there and maneuvering really nicely, and the boat speed barely faltering. Japanese in similar mode.
Only a 9-second margin at that bottom gate, and there's only 13 seconds between these two boats the first time they raced against each other, so this is no shock.
Fast numbers again, mate. 2 knots over target.
Still a lot of starboard tack on this race course. The breeze has definitely shifted to the right here a little bit and made this a little more of a right-hand racetrack.
Down, man. Hit it, hit it, hit it.
I think it's going to do the same as last time. Left shift at the top.
Chris Draper saying nice gains here. Only 60 meters between it. Like you said, there's the right-hand wind shift on the race course, that the breeze coming down over the hills. Breeze never goes straight, it always goes back and forth, right to left, right to left. It's up to the tacticians to read the water, look at the dark spots on the water to help them figure out whether it's a right or left-hand shift and where the velocity is. Closing up. Japan is not going slow or going away here at all, but they're setting themselves up for that wing wash again. You're going to see it in unison tack yet again here, Ali. Very traditional match racing tactics.
So the Japanese on their way, and the Swedes, as predicted, doing similarly.
Slightly light here. No faster than target here, Dino.
Just 50 meters separating this two. One more leg after this one, and then the reach to the finish line.
Japanese are quick right now. They're just not super quick, not big speed differences, but just enough to make this a little antsy for the Swedish team. It's all about who makes that little bit of a mistake. Artemis will tack right on top of Japan again, I'm guessing. We don't see them there. There they go.
Hit it, boys, hit it.
I see them both do a... Likely they both ran into a little bit of a light spot there. The boat heeled to windward, actually tipped to windward a little bit. Both of them had to catch it.
Japanese just seem to be picking up a little bit of pace here.
This is a boat race, huh? This is our race of the day here right now, and what a way to finish a spectacular day on the water here in Bermuda. A lot of smiles. I mean, how can you not?
What are the options here for the Japanese? Because up until now, Outridge has had his foot on their throat, and he's been dictating terms to them.
Pressing at me, mate, pressing at me.
Can Dean Barker do anything to kind of remove himself from this scenario where he is constantly in the wash of the Swedes.
Yeah, well, he's not in the wash right now. He tacked early. Chances are he tacked before lay line, which he did. I don't think they're going to even close to laying the gate right now. So he broke off before Artemis was expecting it in order to just try to shake it a little bit. But this is, you know, the diehards of the world who say there's no such thing match racing catamarans, never mind match racing four-lane catamarans. They got to watch the replay of this race because this is classic boat-on-boat match racing. Look out for that mark, fellas. I hope you see it.
Well, it's a slightly different dynamic for the Japanese, isn't it? Trying to reel in an opponent in front of them. They've been the ones quite often out in front, but then surrendering leads. But now they've got to find answers to different questions.
Again, Artemis right on top of Team Japan. And a few races that sliver of an advantage of the wing wash goes to the boat that actually is behind in the race. But again, there's disturbed air coming off the wing of that boat, and they're trying to throw it on their competitor and trying to slow them down. They're probably getting a little far away for that to be super effective, but you can see they've gained, probably doubled their lead in the last half of this leg just by maybe a couple slightly better tacks.
One last downwind leg. Artemis Racing, the Swedes led by Nathan Outridge, screaming away on their foils. Japanese with ground to make up here, but working hard, pumping those grinders.
When the boat rounds onto these downwind legs, it's pretty amazing how much they actually take off, how much a very small gap can get widened in a short period of time just because of the higher speeds, boat speeds, downwind versus upwind. So this is a 40-50 meter race not too long ago. They probably doubled it by the time they got to the mark and then doubled it again just by accelerating onto this run.
Let's bring in Adam Onoprio out on the water for us, part of Groupama Team France. Adam, the Swedes gone now?
Yep, the Swedes are just sailing fantastically. You saw every one of their tacks up that beat was perfect. And Team Japan just dipped their hull in a couple of times and just losing a few meters every single time. And that's just helped make it easier for Nathan and his team just to extend.
How will the rest of the fleet view today from Sweden particularly, because there's been so much chat about their capability. We were all talking about them in advance of the regatta itself, weren't largely based around their practice performances. But I mean, is it safe to say that both the USA and New Zealand would fear the Swedes more than the others?
I think above 14 knots, every team fears racing Sweden. And looking at yesterday's performance, under 8 knots, everyone's going to fear racing Team New Zealand. But then today, you know, Team New Zealand went out there and thrashed Team Japan. So, you know, maybe Team New Zealand's got something to show in the heavy airs, which we haven't seen in the past.
Everybody talks about the different moding, and we've seen some teams in Breeze come out and only go 24, 25 on one day and go 30 plus the next day. So small changes can make radical differences. Tomorrow's the big day, Ali. Oracle versus Emirates Team New Zealand to see the winner takes all. That's it. Who beats who? As a commentator in sailing, you may want to retire after that one. It doesn't get much better than that, son. As a rugby guy.
Happy.
Well, there's a bit to go here, Kelly.
That's true.
Hate to tell you that, but
Groundhog
we're here
Day.
for the distance.
We are now thickly in Groundhog Day.
There's some fabulous racing on show, and all of these teams have put on the most wonderful display in this fabulous environment.
Getting up pretty soon, guys.
15 to drive.
Again, approaching 40 knots as they hit this final gate. It has been a day to remember for Artemis Racing, and Nathan Outridge leading the Swedes home at this point. Well pleased with events.
They needed it, Ali. They had a day or two off to kind of regroup and kind of look within themselves, and man, oh man, they put on a bit of a performance today. Like Adam was saying, they are to be feared when the breeze is up. There is no question about that.
2 victories today for the Swedes. They are hitting form. They are coming to the party, and they will really offer a threat from here on in. Nathan Outridge will be absolutely thrilled, and Ian Percy too. They've had their fair share of frustrations, that's for sure, out here in Bermuda. And frustration is probably the word for Dean Barker and SoftBank Team Japan. 2 more defeats today. They're just not pulling out the results that they would like at the moment. Through the qualifiers safely enough, but issues to deal with ahead of the Challenger playoff semi-finals.